Hey everybody, today we need to have a look at gold. Gold has been a source of frustration for a lot of um, investment managers and investors and traders for that matter for really a number of years now. So I wanted to take a minute and look at what I consider to be the most important or the most interesting, the most compelling, whatever word you want to use, chart in gold. And it's not this one here. I'm going to get to that one in just a second. So, but let's build a little bit of perspective. This is gold, GLD. We're going to use the GLD ETF because it's a bit more uniform. Some people can't trade futures and so on and so forth, but I think a lot of people can trade this US listed ETF. So the optics first, then we'll go through a little bit of structural stuff, and then we'll get to the most important chart that is, in my opinion. So simply put, gold on the weekly chart here going back to many years. You can see a big run. Some of you guys might remember that one in 2011. And then basically we fell into a massive consolidation period that now is about 10, call it maybe 11 years old or so. Big tracing out of a consolidation pattern. I tend to think ultimately this will resolve higher. So we've had a more notable consolidation period since August of 2020. Equities had a big bid, basically pandemic-induced spending, and I mean fiscal spending, kind of held back the breakout, in my opinion. Some of you guys might refer to this as a cup and handle pattern if you want to be technical about it, but this is kind of what's going on. Now, why could potentially gold, and I say it because it hasn't really developed a new uptrend yet in the intermediate term, but why could it potentially rally in 2022? Well, for one thing, the inflation and quite frankly, what looks to be a central bank, the Fed, that might be raising rates into an economic slowdown. That could get gold moving, and that's one thing that, from a sort of structural backdrop, is quite interesting. So that's the chart, the easy chart or the straightforward chart on gold, and a little bit of a structural reason why gold may go higher. And on our market rover, which is our trend following algorithm, gold is in a long-term uptrend, but it is not yet in a new intermediate-term, multi-month, multi-quarter uptrend. So it's still developing. But let's get to it. Drum rolls, please. Look at the most important chart that is, in my opinion, and that is when you take gold and you divide it, the GLD, and you divide it by the SPY. And for that, we actually have to focus in on more of a daily time frame. And I'm going to give you this one. So the most frustrating part for a lot of people that follow gold and the GLD ETF, for that matter, has been essentially that consolidation period since, I'm going to call it March of 2020, which is really when equities began to rebound. And in very simple terms, gold versus the S&P, and this is the relative chart, the ratio chart, has underperformed the S&P. But all we've had is sort of counter trend rally. So gold would outperform the S&P every once in a while. A whole bunch of fits and starts, but they all were basically fake outs. But right now we're coming into what I think is a pretty important test for that ratio, that relative strength, that to me would give me a lot more confirmation, a lot more I guess confirmation, but really confidence is probably the better word I'm looking for. That gold could start to get into a better bullish trend for this year. Remember, gold doesn't act like a tech stock. It doesn't just go crazy for many months at a time. It tends to kind of pause and then go again. So we're looking for kind of like the beginning of that, if and when. Again, it's not yet confirmed, but I think gold in relative terms versus the S&P is at a critical spot. If it can show us that it can kind of, grind above this area of resistance here, I think that would be a big tell, and that would, of course, coincide with a breakout out of the actual chart of the GLD ETF itself, probably at least above the mid 170s. And I think if we can clear 175, I think that's really when the animal spirits from a trend following perspective would come into play. And then we could probably see gold go back to 190 on the GLD